Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Adult Forum with Father Stephen and Mother Cameron. As we had advertised, we said that we would be taking topics from the headlines each week to discuss with you in Adult Forum. And this week we got the articles from Wired Word, and we're not impressed.
Right. It was pretty lightweight.
Yeah, so our options were they were good. It was, Italy has built a bridge and Yale has an increased enrollment in their happiness psychology classes. And so there is stuff to discuss there, but we felt like we could really delve into something deeper. And so I brought to Father Stephen an article or a video actually that I had seen on Facebook by my former biology teacher from high school, Dr. Rob Carter. And so basically what he had done was posted a response to Plandemic, which piqued my interest. Like, what was he talking about? And so his video was very, as somebody else worded it, it was a good rant. And he has since edited it, taken out some of what were classic, sarcastic Dr. Carter comments. But he doesn't hold back on any punches here. He truly sees that this video is atrocious and calls it bunk and goes about proving scientifically why what this Plandemic movie alleges is not true. What is truly amazing about Dr. Carter is that he works for the Creation Museum as a scientist for Creation Ministries International. And he has chosen to come out and say that this article isn't fully correct. And so one of the things that I was going to share with you is, if I can find it again, was the NPR had posted something about it as well. And so I pulled up this movie Plandemic, and it is basically a conspiracy theory about how the current COVID-19 was basically a plot. And that it was
basically a what? I didn't catch
plot.
That. A plot.
Yeah, it was like this pre-prepared virus. We're not going to say that it was formed in a lab, but we're not going to say that it's not. And anyway, Father Stephen, you watched them. Is there anything you want to add to that?
It was, yeah, the movie goes by another name too, called The Hidden Agenda Behind COVID-19, as well as Plandemic Part 1. But it's really a conspiracy theory that says somehow the U.S. government manufactured this virus and spread it around the globe, but that really not that many people are dying of it. They're attributing other deaths to COVID-19 when it's really not happening. And the whole point behind it is to try and let those in charge control everybody else. That's the agenda of the movie. And in the end, they're saying this was all done to decide who gets published in Science and whose views get to go forward. I was like, oh, so we're going to kill thousands of people to determine who gets published? It's a very strange video, but it's done like a documentary. And if you don't apply some kind of critical thinking to it, you just think, oh, well, this must be happening. And I've seen a few of my friends on Facebook post this, thinking that this is the reality. This is the quote unquote truth.
It's a 26-minute video that exploded across social media right over the past week on an alternate view of COVID-19 that differs from what they would call the official narrative, right? Yeah. And so it had been up on YouTube links, it had been up on Venmo. One would get brought down for violation of community guidelines across these social medias, and then another one would pop up. And so even though they would get removed for violating policy about COVID-19 misinformation, somebody else would post it again. And so basically, it's a filmmaker, Mickey Willis, does an interview with Judy Mikovits, whom he says is one of the greatest scientists of her generation that basically no one has ever heard of. And
Spent time in jail.
She did. She spent some time incarcerated. At one point in time, she worked for AIDS research and infectious diseases. But anyway, it's basically what someone would consider, and we're not going to tell you what to think, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about that again with Dr. Carter, but it does make one consider what is truth, what is fact, how do things work within the scientific community, and like, yeah, so I'm sure you can find a copy of it if you want to. I'm not necessarily encouraging you to go watch it, but if you want to go check out the Plandemic movie or Hidden Agenda, it's out there. I'd also encourage you then to find Dr. Rob Carter's
debunking.
Yeah, I was like counter to it. So Dr. Carter is actually, as I mentioned, he was works as a scientist for Creation Ministries International. He has a BS in applied biology from Georgia Tech, and he taught for 4 years. That was at a high school. That was mine. Biology, chemistry, physics, and electronics. And then he went back to the University of Miami for his PhD in marine biology, and has continued to work basically to try and research the stories in the Bible. And so he wrote an article that called How to Think and Not What to Think, right? So how to think. And the article opens with, we at CMI have spent many years writing and speaking on scientific and theological issues. We have said over and over again that one does not have to turn off one's brain when going into church, and there is a rich intellectual foundation to biblical creation. We have disavowed conspiracy theories and have encouraged others to do so as well. In fact, he refers people to things like snoops and fact-checking to help people check out the basic facts about science. He concludes the article by saying, we love science. We love thinking. We love exploring and marveling about the world that our Creator made. And because our God is a God of logic and order, it is not a stretch to conclude that the ultimate lawgiver would have created a universe that operates according to logic and laws. This is the reason we can embrace science and the Bible at the same time and without contradiction. He says this is why we reject things like conspiracy theory, alt science, and deep time naturalistic evolutionary theory. We as Episcopalians are kind of okay with naturalistic evolutionary theory. But again, I was just kind of amazed that one of the prominent scientists with Creation Ministries came out to say, this is bunk, and let's look at this scientifically, and takes each argument and talks about the ways that a lot of conspiracy theories will just kind of put something out there and leave it hanging and quickly switch to something else, so that you're not able, they never really finish a sentence. So you're not able to like fully follow a line of thought. It leaves a lot to be desired. So yeah, anything counter to that or response to that, Father Stephen?
Well, I just think it's interesting that we're in the middle of a crisis, and oftentimes in the middle of crises, we see conspiracy theories mount. Somebody's got to be responsible. Somebody's got to be blamed. And what we do is we come up with an idea of who's in the wrong and build the case. I mean, let's face it, I love a good conspiracy theory as much as anybody else. One of my favorite shows in the 90s was X-Files. For goodness sakes, the truth is out there, but for entertainment, not reality. And one of the things I think about about conspiracy theories is they populate in times when we have real fears about something. I mean, I remember when the Da Vinci Code came out, and there was this big conspiracy theory throughout the history of the Roman Catholic Church to keep the fact that Mary and Jesus were married and had a child together, that we're going to keep that secret and away from us. Well, the reason why that flourished so much, that book flourished so much, is it was right after the Roman Catholic Church started to deal with the reality of all the sexual misconduct of their clergy and leaders over decades that was never reported and kept secret. There was a real conspiracy. And the Da Vinci Code invented a fake one for entertainment purposes, just like the X-Files. But it didn't take away the fact that people were mistrustful of the church because a real conspiracy was unearthed. And I think there's a lot to be said about that in terms of how we look at our government, especially since the war in Vietnam. There was a lot of misinformation that was given to people in the United States, outright lies that denied the facts on the ground during the war. And so ever since then, there's been this sense that there's conspiracies going on. You know, people have pointed even before the Vietnam War got too big and said the conspiracy to kill John F. Kennedy was about the war. And since the government had kept information from us, since the government had lied about things in the war, we just assumed that was what was happening. And so from time to time across the last 50 years or so, conspiracy theories pop up about what's happening. We're suffering under an incredible pandemic in this world right now. And we want to search for who's responsible, who did this to us. We can't wrap our heads around the idea that this is just a part of the natural course of events in human and earthly existence, that diseases will rise up from time to time and infect a good portion of humanity. It's part of the DNA of the world that we inhabit, unfortunately. But we can't accept that. And since we have this history of thinking that the government lies to us, we develop conspiracy theories. Which leads us to the whole idea of what's the difference between truth and fact. Let me say something about fact. Fact is indisputable. You know, there is a fact that I'm sitting at this table. That's a fact. Truth is what we make out of the facts. Truth is what we make out of our experience. Truth is what we make out of how we live and move and have our life together with other people. It isn't necessarily based on facts. I think it's true that my wife loves me. Could I factually prove it? No. I could point to some evidence, but I couldn't say it's an absolute fact. It's a truth. And when we start messing with what is fact and what isn't, for instance, we all remember our president's inauguration. And Press Secretary Sean Spicer said that it was the most watched, most attended, biggest crowd ever for an inauguration. Well, and then people were quick to show photos, aerial photos, to show that it was not the biggest. And then Sean Spicer elaborated and said, well, if you add in all the people around the world who watched it online, it was. Oh, okay. Well, that's a fact. That is a fact. And probably it was the most watched inauguration because 2012, you didn't have as many people around the world tuning into the internet. By 2016, you did. So even if the actual attendance on the mall was smaller than others, worldwide it was the biggest. So there are some facts. Unfortunately, Kellyanne Conway, when she was challenged on this, said, well, our administration has alternative facts. No. You have different information that you could share that is factual, but you don't have alternative facts. That's not the way the world works. But see, part of the struggle with all this is ever since the scientific revolution, we've determined that facts are the most important kind of truth. Facts are more important than ideas or ideals or our experience of the world where truth comes from. So if we want something to be really good, we have to call it a fact. And that's when you start getting into this whole business of interpretation of the facts in ways that disagree with one another. Our facts beat your facts. No, we think our interpretation of the facts beats your interpretation of the facts. In the end, though, all those interpretations are about the truth that people want to get across. You know, the fight between liberal and conservative in this country is all about manipulating the quote unquote facts in order to support the truth of one side or another. So of course conspiracy theories are going to arise on both sides because everybody's going to want their facts to win out. No, they're not pushing their facts, they're pushing their truth, what they believe, how they want to live and move and exist in the world, which is not relegated just to facts. Facts support it, but can't embrace the fullness of how we live. So, that being, anything you want to say about that, Mother Cameron?
Oh, I have so many thoughts.
That's kind of the point behind this. We've been hearing from people that these forms we've been doing, they want to stop them in the middle and think about what we just said because wait a minute, did they really say that? What? Well, I'm good at promoting thought in you, obviously.
Yeah, so like there was like I want to go back.
Okay.
So like, okay, so to some degree you talked about the Da Vinci Code, right? So I'm going to go back to that one and then
okay, good.
I'll
The Da Vinci
move us
Code.
forward. All right, so I'm going to go back to the Da Vinci Code. So that, you know, if we're creating these conspiracy theories, right, of, and I had asked you this question, but if we're creating conspiracy theories, if the biggest concern was, and like actually in the world at the moment, was sexual misconduct within the church, to bring into the mix the possibility that Jesus had corporal desires. Is that what you would call those?
What's that?
Is it corporal desire? Like,
yes, right.
Yeah.
Yes, corporal desire.
Desires of the flesh. Let's
Desires of the flesh. There you go.
That if Jesus, being fully human, had sexual needs,
Mm-hmm.
which may or may not have been met,
Mm-hmm.
in a relationship with Mary Magdalene,
Mm-hmm.
then that creates, you know, like, so then I think, well, so what's the problem with Jesus having desire?
Good point.
Right. I think what it
Fully
does.
human.
Huh?
He was fully human.
I think we feel threatened by the idea that, you know, that throughout history and time, there have been historians, theologians that have tried to encourage purity and denial of self needs to be like Christ, right?
Yep.
In this idea that such things keep you away from God or guide you from being in closer relationship with God, and to deny yourself of those things will enhance your relationship with God and with Christ, i.e. the idea of our very erotic visions of some of our saints as of late, right? So like this past week we talked about Julian of Norwich, we've talked about Catherine of Siena,
Teresa of Avila.
Teresa of Avila, that we have this idea that somehow erotic thoughts and or beliefs are not of God and of Christ. And so then to say like this conspiracy that Christ had a relationship with Mary Magdalene then takes us into this whole other scope of things to say, all right, well, perhaps there has been sexual scandal since the beginning of Christendom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There have been. I hate to tell you this. There have been. Human beings are involved.
David and Bathsheba.
Right. Human beings are involved.
As what you talked about in EFM, right? Like David was he was a peeping Tom. Hey,
He was a peeping Tom. David was a peeping Tom.
That roof.
Yes.
Come look.
That's right. Yes, yes. Well, but you raise a very good point. Is when you start dealing with conspiracy theories, you got to think, what's being served here? And for the conspiracy theory in the Da Vinci Code, what was being served in some ways was not bad theology, as you point out. The idea that Jesus being fully human and fully divine is part of our teaching. So if he's fully human, he's susceptible to everything about what it means to be human. And the Da Vinci Code is saying that, can the church really embrace that reality? And if it does, will it lose its power or control? So that was what the movie and the book were really about, is the idea that suppress this very earthy image of Jesus so we, the church, can stay in power. And the reality is that apparently, becomes a best-selling novel at the same time that abusive forms of being human are being revealed about the church. Yeah. There we are. I mean, it's the conspiracies, have an agenda. And the Da Vinci Code's agenda was not all that bad. The idea of supporting the theology of Christ being both human and divine. And they were pushing the human side because they felt the church had only pushed the divine and had abandoned the human for the sake of control. So, but in this movie that's out, this Plandemic Part 1, or the hidden agenda behind COVID-19, the agenda is just to get people riled up, to get people angry about something we're already angry about, and to give diffuse information that in the end doesn't make any sense, but just irritates and angers people. It's promoting the divisions that we already have in our country in a way that pushes the conflict. So their agenda is to push the conflict, so maybe in the conflict they can help one side win. I think that's what's behind it.
So if we take this idea of evolution and science, and I mean, as people of faith, we can't help but overlay some of it, right? So if we were to look at it, to some degree, what I think that this movie, the Plandemic, does is that it totally negates the fact that viruses happen. Like, viruses are a thing.
Yes.
Like, it is created no matter what, right? Like, we talk to some degree sometimes about what is everything that we create as being created in the image of God, therefore creation of God, right? So if we're playing with clay and I have molded something,
yeah.
Is God in that creation? Is God in the creation of me messing with molecules under a microscope, right? So it comes in, so it brings in this idea of what is creation.
Right.
Is creation by God what we call good? So, yeah. And then who defines what is good, yep. Right? So God creates and he sees that it is good.
Mm-hmm.
And so that if things are created and God sees that it is bad, I've never heard that, but right? But God sees that this is bad, then is it not of God because it is not good? But if we go back to all those stories, you had mentioned a thing before this past week, and of the idea of what we have are our stories, right? Well, if we go back to the Bible, we have stories of plague and famine,
yep.
And adversity and all of these.
Lots of it.
Yeah, again and again and again, there was war and famine and plague and pestilence and things that we experience now have always been in creation. And so to some degree, I think, me personally, to consider this like a conspiracy, is it not part of the natural order? Like, these things have always been. And they come.
That's a very good point. There is a fact. The fact is we have had viruses in the past. The fact is we have had famines in the past. The fact is we have had plagues in the past. The fact is human beings get cancer. The fact is some human beings get the flu and die from it. These are all facts. When we start to move from facts to truth is about what it means. And I can sum that up very simply in the way that I dealt with my diagnosis of cancer 15 years ago. Is I thought, why did I get this? This isn't fair. I'm thinking about it not as a fact, but as an idea. The fact is I had cancer. So I was trying to make some truth out of it. What is the truth of this? And the truth that I came to was somewhat based in science. I looked to the universe, and the universe seems to create life. That I believe in a creator. I can't prove that as factual, but I believe in a creator, and I look at the universe around us, and the universe around us creates life. So I assume that God created this universe. This is now moving to truth, not fact. I'm looking at the facts, life. But the truth is I believe that God created this universe with a bias for life. And so I'm alive. The cancer in my body is alive. We're competing for the same resources, so I got to get rid of them. So I'm going to kill the cancer. The same thing's true with this virus. This virus is a form of life. It's doing horrible things to humanity because it's found out how to live in us and live the fullness of its life. Well, we're now competing for the same resources. We need to kill it. Hate to say that, but it's part of this messy process of what it means to live in a universe that is created with a bias towards life. Life is messy, and new life is always coming about. And we have the gifts God has given us to fight against life that tries to kill us, and should do that, I believe. Again, it's I believe. This is not facts again. This is truth. How am I living the truth? The truth is there's a lot of life in the universe, and some of it needs to die, like COVID-19.
So, all right. So talk with me a little bit about gospel truth, right? So like we use that phrase to say that's the gospel truth, right? Like whether it actually came from Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, doesn't matter. We will claim things as the gospel truth, right?
Right.
And then so you get truth mixed in with belief and fact.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
like where do we fall as a people of faith? And then faith, right? Because I just said as a people of faith, which means that we have a creed. We believe something. So do you place your belief on fact or truth?
That's great. That is great. I don't base my beliefs ultimately on fact. I may start there. I may start by observing the facts of existence, but facts don't mean a whole lot until we give them interpretation. It is a fact that all four Gospels tell us that Jesus stood before Pilate and was condemned to death. But it is only John's Gospel that has a distinct conversation between Jesus and Pilate. And it ultimately ends with Pilate asking Jesus, "What is truth?" And Jesus says nothing. And almost right after that, Pilate brings Jesus out to the crowds and says, "Behold the man."
He's the man.
Here's the man. The man. Seriously. And that may be the weight of that phrase. Ecce homo. Behold the man. And in a sense, John's gospel is saying, what is truth? Jesus is truth. There's no response necessary. Jesus stands before Pilate. The one who embraces the world with God's love, even Pilate in Rome, is the truth. So when we say gospel truth, we may be saying, well, yes, I really did win $100 at poker last night. That's the gospel truth. No, I didn't play poker, but anyway.
I was like, where did you go to play poker?
That could be a fact. But the gospel is more about interpreting the facts than it is telling us the facts. Jesus stood before Pilate, and what John came to see as the truth was that Jesus stood before Pilate as the embodiment of God's love to the world and had nothing else to say. Nothing else was needed, just the presence of Jesus, even in that moment. So that's a truth. Now, so we're talking about faith. Well, I trust in that truth. That becomes faith. And then belief comes from out of that. We have the fact he stood before Pilate, the idea that he is truth, the faith that we trust in that. And then finally, the belief is we believe that if we embrace this truth, that God so loved the world, that we will be able to live it out in a way that makes sense and makes the world a place of God's love. So the basic facts, they help, but we got to get to what the facts mean for us. And all this conspiracy theories and jockeying back and forth with interpretation of the facts is to try and win that debate. That my side, my facts, and the truth I develop from those facts is more important than yours. Well, that's...
But all right, so if I take the idea that factually the fact that is being put out is that I can contract COVID-19 through moisture droplets, right? So the idea is that I wear a mask,
mm-hmm.
and you wear a mask,
mm-hmm.
And it helps reduce,
right,
the social distancing, all of these things that have been put into place. Specifically, the social distancing, not breathing on one another, washing your hands, those sorts of things. These things have been said to be, it is proven that if you wash your hands, you reduce your risk of spreading germs.
Yes.
If you wear your mask, it's, and someone else has on their mask, it reduces the chance that, right? So we take this science and fact, and then try to overlay that with our faith and our belief.
Yeah.
And so we say that part of caring for my neighbor,
mm-hmm.
part of being kind to creation, mm-hmm. and to the life of others is to follow these recommendations. Right. And so, but that's our interpretation of the fact that we spread germs, right? Like we are little hosts, and I forget who it is that used to call their little person, their little, my little germ factory, right? Like
a little petri dish.
Yeah. They just carry germs around, and it's true. Like,
that's fact. That is fact.
That is fact.
We carry germs around and we spread them.
We carry germs around. We've got little mites and bugs, as much as I don't want to think about it, but that I have these things on me, and that, and I can spread those things to other people through contact.
And so how do we interpret that? We can interpret it as, I don't care. I know that we spread germs. We're going to spread germs. Some people will say, we're going to spread germs anyway. Let the germs spread, and those who survive that was the benefit of evolution. And, I don't buy that. That's not who I am. That's not the truth I want to follow. So the facts for me, the fact that we do spread droplets to one another and can spread disease, leads me to the truth that I need to care for my neighbor by wearing a mask, just in case I am a carrier of the something that could kill them. So I want to preserve their life. I value their life. I value the life of humanity. These are truths, not facts. These are truths I want to live by.
But they're influenced by fact.
But they're influenced by facts. Exactly. So it's when you start to manipulate your interpretation of the facts so that you get across just your opinion that we run into trouble, that we run into serious trouble. I'm not, there are some people who say it's really not that contagious. What's the truth that they're going after? Truth that they're going after is they want to live their life as they've always lived it. Let me live my life. Don't take away my life. It's more important to me. I don't care what you say about the facts of how it spreads, because I've read other data that says it doesn't spread that easily. That's manipulating the facts so they can continue doing what they've always done. Don't make me change anything. Don't make me wear a mask. Don't take away my freedom. Those are truths. The facts are, how contagious is it? And some interpret the facts differently than others for the purpose of an agenda, of what they believe or what truth they want to see. That's when it gets scary, when the interpretation of the facts are manipulated for an agenda. And that's what most conspiracy theories are, manipulating the interpretation of the facts to support some other truth. The hidden agenda isn't about COVID-19. The hidden agenda is the rationale of conspiracy theorists. That's the hidden agenda. For what it's worth.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just trying to wrap my whole head around it of, for me personally, what came to mind was to think of the number of things in the past that I have heard, the types of conspiracy theories I have heard, right? One, of course, you think of Elvis, right? That he didn't really die. Elvis is still with us. I think, I'm sorry, I think Elvis is dead. But, on a more serious note, those that argue that that the Holocaust didn't happen.
Yes.
Right. That we didn't kill, that mass numbers of people were not killed just because of their belief system or because of, or that, other types of mass genocide. Well, they're just making that up. When there are buildings and there are documents and there are, there's an overwhelming.
Yes.
Overwhelming number of what I would say are evidence to show that it did happen. Absolutely.
Again, what's the agenda? What is the truth they're trying to manufacture? The truth they're trying to manufacture is that I don't know, maybe most of the people I know who deny the Holocaust, at least in this country, are white supremacists. So they're trying to give justice and support to the idea that only whites, and for that matter, white Christians, should be in charge of the world, or if not the world, just this country. So the idea of denying the Holocaust is to say that Judaism has a conspiracy to keep them from being in charge. It's how what they say the facts are get manipulated. I mean, it's easy enough to prove that facts aren't facts if they're pushed so far that it denies all evidence, like the Holocaust deniers.
The metaphor will eventually break down.
Exactly. There are many in the Middle East who, and there have been leaders, especially in Iran, who have denied the Holocaust. And what's their agenda? Their agenda is not denying the Holocaust. Their agenda is to get rid of the state of Israel, because they don't like the state of Israel being in the Middle East. And Iran has been very, very clear about that for a long time. So they deny the Holocaust and the facts of the Holocaust to support their idea or their belief or their truth that they don't think Israel should have been established in 1948 as a state in the Middle East. So yeah, you always got to ask those who are debunking reality and claiming conspiracy theories, those who are creating conspiracy theories, it's always worth asking, what's their agenda? Yeah.
So you may disagree with me, and that's okay. But so my final thought on this is the agenda of the Abrahamic faith.
The agenda of the Abrahamic faiths. Good question.
My thought is that our agenda is to care for the poor, the sick, the widow, the orphan, those in need or any kind of trouble.
Absolutely.
And to care for our neighbors.
Absolutely. You know, we look at the facts of human existence, that life is hard and people suffer. And the truth we want to uphold is that we care for those in need, care for the lonely and the sick, the poor, and love our neighbor as ourselves, and love our God. Those are our truths. We can't point to any facts other than the food we give to the food pantry, the meals we cook for friends of the homeless, the people we visit who are sick and dying. Those are facts. And ideally, when the facts support a greater truth, they usually make sense. They're not outlandish conspiracy theories. When the facts and the truth that people follow come together, it makes sense. For what it's worth.
I think that's a good place to end for today, unless you have anything.
I think so. Thank you so much. This was a lively discussion on this matter. I hope people get a lot out of it.
Indeed. All right. We'll see everybody again later. Take care.
God bless.
Bye.